I have work for you. Good money. Very good money. But it requires discretion. My name is Zara, and I am what humans call different. My skin carries the emerald shade of my home world, a color that marks me as an outsider here on Earth. That morning, I stood with dozens of other women on Fifth Street, our faces etched with desperation. The headscarf wrapped around my face felt like a prison, hiding what I truly was. In this world where humans and aliens lived side by side, being different still meant being last in line for everything: jobs, food, hope. The other women whispered among themselves. Maria, the human woman beside me, clutched a photograph of her children. Her eyes held the same hollow desperation that haunted my own reflection. Another day, another rejection, she muttered. The sun climbed higher, and my hope sank deeper. Then I heard it, the purr of an expensive engine cutting through the morning noise like a knife through silence. A sleek black car rolled down the street, its windows tinted darker than midnight. The vehicle moved slowly, deliberately, as if its driver was searching for something specific. Or someone. The car stopped directly in front of me. My heart hammered against my ribs. The other women stepped back, their faces mixing hope with envy. Why me? Why had it stopped for me? The rear window rolled down with a soft, mechanical whisper. I couldn't see inside. The interior was too dark, too shadowed. But I felt eyes studying me, evaluating me, measuring me for something I couldn't comprehend. You. A voice called from within. It was smooth, cultured. The one in the green headscarf. Maria grabbed my arm. "Be careful," she whispered. "Remember what happened to Linda last month." Linda. The woman who had gotten into a similar car and never came back. But hunger makes you brave. Desperation makes you stupid. And I was both. "Yes?" My voice cracked like breaking glass. "I have a job for you," the voice said. "Good pay, very good pay. But it requires discretion." The word hung in the air between us like a loaded weapon. Discretion. In my experience, that word usually preceded something dark, something that would haunt your dreams forever. But the bills were piling up. My tiny apartment would be lost by week's end. "What kind of job?" I asked. "The kind that could change your life forever," the voice replied. "Get in, and I'll explain everything." The car door swung open. Inside, I caught a glimpse of leather seats and a figure shrouded in shadow. My instincts screamed danger, but my empty wallet whispered opportunity. I climbed into the car. The door slammed shut behind me with the finality of a coffin lid. The interior of the car was a cocoon of luxury. Soft leather, polished wood, and the subtle scent of expensive cologne. But what struck me most was the cold, an emotional chill that seemed to emanate from the figure sitting across from me. He was human, tall, well-dressed, with silver hair and eyes like winter storms. His suit probably cost more than I made in a year. "My name is Vincent Cross," he said, extending a manicured hand, "and you are exactly what I've been looking for." Something about his smile made my skin crawl. "You haven't even asked my name," I said. "I know more about you than you might think, Zara." His use of my name hit like a physical blow. Zara Thix, originally from Kepler Prime, arrived on Earth 3 years ago. Clean record, no family, no connections, perfect. Perfect for what? How do you know all that? Vincent's smile widened. "I make it my business to know about special individuals, people who might be interested in earning significant money for minimal work." The car glided through the city streets toward the wealthy district. "What exactly are you offering?" I asked. Vincent reached into his jacket and withdrew a tablet. The number that appeared made my breath catch. This is what you'll earn. Weekly. It was more money than I'd seen in my entire time on Earth. For what? My voice barely registered as a whisper. Simple tasks. Cleaning, organizing, basic household duties, nothing that would challenge someone of your unique background. And why me specifically? Vincent leaned forward, his storm gray eyes boring into mine. Because you understand what it means to be different, Zara. You know what it's like to be an outsider. That perspective will be valuable. The car entered a gated community. Massive houses rose like monuments to wealth and power. There's something else, Vincent continued. This job comes with certain requirements, things you must never discuss with anyone, ever. What kind of requirements? Nothing illegal, he said quickly, nothing that would harm innocent people. But there are aspects of my work that require absolute confidentiality. Can you handle that? I thought about my empty bank account, my overdue rent, the constant hunger. Yes, I said, I can handle that. The car pulled up to an enormous mansion, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. Security cameras tracked our approach, and I counted at least 3 guards. This is your workplace, Vincent said. Beautiful, isn't it? Intimidating was more accurate, the kind of place where secrets lived behind every wall. One more thing, Zara, Vincent said as the car stopped. You'll be working with others. Other women like yourself, outsiders who understand the value of discretion. The door opened and Vincent stepped out. I followed, my legs unsteady. Welcome to your new life, he said, gesturing toward the mansion. As I looked up at the towering structure, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was staring at my own tomb. The mansion's interior was overwhelming. Marble floors reflected crystal chandeliers, and expensive artwork decorated every wall. But despite all the luxury, something felt wrong. The silence was too complete, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Vincent led me through endless hallways. Our footsteps echoed despite the thick carpets, and the shadows seemed deeper here, more alive somehow. Your quarters are on the 3rd floor, Vincent said. You'll share the space with the other staff members. Other staff members. The phrase sent another chill through me. How many others were there? And why did I feel like I was being led to a prison? We passed several closed doors, all silent, but I could feel presence behind them. People watching, waiting, breathing quietly in the darkness. The elevator doors opened, revealing mirrors on every surface. As we rose, I caught glimpses of myself. A green-skinned woman wrapped in fear, trying to look brave. The 3rd floor was different, simpler, more institutional. It reminded me of a dormitory, or perhaps a barracks. Vincent stopped at door number 7 and handed me a keycard. Your room. Dinner is at 6 in the common area. Tomorrow, your real work begins. Real work. The words carried weight I didn't understand. What exactly will I be doing? Vincent's smile was razor thin. All in good time, Zara. Rest tonight. Tomorrow you'll meet the others, and everything will become clear. He turned to leave, then paused. The house has excellent security. The system tracks movement throughout the building, for everyone's safety. With that ominous statement, he disappeared. The room was small but clean. A bed, a dresser, a tiny bathroom. The window looked out over perfectly manicured gardens where guards patrolled. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. I opened the door to find a young woman with tired eyes and nervous hands. You're the new one, she said. I'm Jennifer. Been here 6 months. Can I come in? There are things you need to know. I stepped aside and she quickly entered, closing the door behind her. "Listen carefully," she whispered. "This place, it's not what Vincent told you. The job isn't cleaning." My stomach dropped. "What is it?" Jennifer moved to the window. "We're bait. Vincent uses us to lure in others like us, desperate women who'll do anything for money. Lure them for what?" Terror filled her eyes. "They disappear, Zara. One by one, the women Vincent brings here just vanish, and the ones who ask questions, they vanish too." The room spun. "Then why are you still here?" "Because leaving isn't an option." She pulled up her sleeve, revealing a small device embedded in her wrist. "Tracking implant. Try to leave the property and the security system becomes very effective." I stared at the device, horror crawling up my spine. "How many others are there?" "Started with 12. Now there are 4 of us left. You make 5. "What happened to the others?" Jennifer's voice was barely audible. "Vincent has clients. Rich clients with specific tastes. They come here looking for women who won't be missed. Women exactly like us." I grabbed the dresser for support. "We have to get out of here." "There is no out, but there might be another way." She moved closer. One of the other women found something before she disappeared. Evidence about Vincent's real business. She hid it somewhere in the house. "What kind of evidence?" "Files. Photos. Names of his clients. Enough to bring this whole operation down." Her eyes met mine with desperate hope. "If we could find it, we could destroy him." Footsteps in the hallway interrupted us. Jennifer's face went white. "That's Vincent. He makes rounds every night." She moved toward the door. "Whatever you do, don't let him know we talked. And tomorrow, when he gives you the implant, don't resist. Pretend everything is normal until we figure out our next move." The footsteps were getting closer. "Remember," Jennifer whispered as she slipped out, "you're not alone in this. We're going to find that evidence, and we're going to make Vincent pay." A soft knock. "Zara?" "Just checking that you're settling in well." Vincent's voice sounded caring, almost fatherly, but now I heard the predator beneath. "I'm fine," I called back. "Thank you." "Wonderful. Sleep well. Tomorrow is going to be a very important day for you." His footsteps moved away. I sat back on the bed, my mind racing. I was trapped with other women marked for disappearance, but I wasn't helpless. I had information now, and allies. Most importantly, I had something Vincent didn't know about: the special abilities that came with my alien heritage. Abilities I'd kept hidden since arriving on Earth. As I lay down and pretended to sleep, I began planning. Tomorrow, I would play the grateful, naive employee, but secretly, I would begin hunting for that evidence. And when I found it, Vincent Cross would learn what happened when you tried to prey on women who had nothing left to lose. The hunt was about to begin. Sleep never came that night. Every sound in the mansion, every creak, every whisper of wind, every distant footstep sent adrenaline shooting through my veins. I lay in that narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, planning and replanning what came next. At 6 in the morning, a soft chime echoed through the building. Jennifer had mentioned the morning routine. Breakfast at 6:30, followed by what Vincent called orientation for new employees. I dressed carefully, making sure my headscarf was properly positioned to hide my green skin. In this house of predators, being different was already dangerous enough. I didn't need to give Vincent additional ammunition. The common area was on the second floor, a sterile room with white walls and basic furniture. 4 women sat around a small table, eating in silence. They looked up as I entered, and I saw my own fear reflected in their eyes. Jennifer nodded slightly, acknowledging our secret alliance. The others, I would learn their names were Ashley, Carmen, and Priya, regarded me with a mixture of curiosity and pity. They knew what awaited me. "You must be Zara," said Ashley, a woman with prematurely gray hair and haunted eyes. "Welcome to paradise." Her sarcasm was sharp enough to cut glass. I took the empty chair and accepted the plain breakfast they offered: toast, coffee, fruit that tasted like cardboard. The food was adequate but joyless, like everything else in this place. "How long have you all been here?" I asked quietly. "Too long," Carmen muttered. She was younger than the others, maybe 25, with nervous hands that never stopped moving. "Ashley's been here longest, 8 months. I've been here 4. Priya came 2 months ago." "And before you ask," Priya added, her Indian accent thick with exhaustion, "yes, we've all tried to leave. The implants make sure we don't get far." As if summoned by our conversation, Vincent appeared in the doorway. He looked fresh and energetic, like a man who slept peacefully every night instead of lying awake planning other people's destruction. "Good morning, ladies," he said cheerfully. "I hope everyone slept well. Zara, if you're finished with breakfast, it's time for your orientation." The other women wouldn't meet my eyes as I stood. Jennifer's slight nod was the only encouragement I received. Vincent led me back to the elevator, but this time we went down instead of up. The basement level was different from the rest of the house, more clinical with white-tiled walls and the antiseptic smell of a medical facility. "This is where we take care of the practical matters," Vincent explained, guiding me into a room filled with medical equipment. A woman in scrubs waited beside an examination table. She was older, with cold eyes and steady hands. I didn't need to be told what came next. "The implant procedure is completely safe," Vincent said as the medical technician prepared a syringe. "Just a small device that helps us keep track of our employees for security purposes. You understand." I understood perfectly. I was about to be tagged like livestock. "Is this really necessary?" I asked, trying to sound naive rather than terrified. "I'm afraid so," Vincent replied. His voice carried that false sympathy that I was learning to hate. "We've had problems with theft in the past. This protects everyone." The technician gestured for me to sit on the examination table. I complied, remembering Jennifer's advice about not resisting. Yet. The injection site was cleaned and numbed. I felt the needle slide under my skin, felt the small device being implanted in my wrist. It burned for a moment, then settled into a dull ache. "There," Vincent said with satisfaction. "Now you're officially part of our family." Family. The word made me sick. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now, we discuss your real duties." Vincent's mask finally began to slip. "You see, Zara, I wasn't entirely truthful yesterday. The job does involve service, but not the kind you were expecting." Here it comes, I thought, the truth I'd been dreading. "I have clients," Vincent continued, "very wealthy clients with very specific needs. They come here seeking companionship from women who match certain criteria." Companionship. Another word that meant something entirely different from what it suggested. "And what criteria do I match?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "You're exotic," Vincent said simply. "Different." Alien. There are men who pay extraordinary amounts for the opportunity to spend time with someone like you. The room felt like it was closing in around me. This was worse than I'd imagined. Vincent wasn't just making women disappear, he was selling them first. What if I refuse? Vincent's smile was ice cold. Oh, my dear Zara, refusal isn't an option. The contracts you signed yesterday were quite comprehensive. You belong to me now, legally and practically. Contracts. I remembered signing papers in the car, documents I'd assumed were simple employment agreements. How naive I'd been. But don't worry, Vincent continued. The work pays well, and most clients are relatively gentle. You'll find that cooperation makes everything much easier. The medical technician was packing up her equipment, apparently finished with her part in this nightmare. I was alone with Vincent in a basement room that suddenly felt like a tomb. Your first appointment is this afternoon, Vincent said, checking his phone. A regular client who specifically requested someone with your coloring. I think you'll find him quite charming. My skin crawled. And if something goes wrong, if a client becomes violent, that's what the security team is for, Vincent replied. They monitor everything. Your safety is guaranteed as long as you follow the rules. Rules. Of course there were rules. What rules? Vincent handed me a tablet loaded with what looked like a training manual. Everything is explained here. Dress codes, behavior expectations, safety protocols. Study it carefully. Your life may depend on understanding every detail. As we rode the elevator back upstairs, Vincent's phone buzzed with a message. He read it and smiled. Excellent news, he said. Mr. Davidson is very excited about meeting you this afternoon. He's one of our most generous clients. Mr. Davidson, I filed the name away for later use. Now, Vincent continued as we reached the main floor, you have the morning to prepare. Jennifer will help you select appropriate clothing and explain the final details. Don't disappoint me, Zara. First impressions are crucial in this business. He walked away, leaving me standing in the hallway with the tablet clutched in my shaking hands. I found Jennifer in the common area, pretending to read a magazine. When she saw my face, she immediately understood. He told you, she said quietly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Come on, she said, standing up. Let's get you ready. And while we do, I'll tell you everything I know about Maria's evidence. It's time to start fighting back. As we headed toward the elevator, I made a silent promise to myself. Vincent Cross thought he owned me, thought he could use me and dispose of me like all the others. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Jennifer led me to a room I hadn't seen before, a wardrobe filled with clothes that made my stomach turn. Silk dresses in every color, each one designed to reveal more than it concealed. Shoes that were clearly meant for display rather than walking. Jewelry that sparkled like chains. Pick something that makes you feel powerful, Jennifer advised quietly. Not pretty, not attractive. Powerful. Trust me on this. I selected a deep blue dress. It was revealing, but the color reminded me of the night sky over my homeworld. It gave me strength to remember where I came from, who I really was beneath this human disguise. As I changed, Jennifer kept watch and spoke in whispers. Maria found the evidence 3 weeks before she disappeared, she said. She was cleaning Vincent's office when she discovered a hidden compartment in his desk. Inside were files on all his clients, photos of women who'd been through here, financial records. Where did she hide it? That's what we need to figure out. She told me it was somewhere safe, somewhere Vincent would never think to look, but she disappeared before she could tell me where. I adjusted the dress, hating how it felt against my skin. How much time do we have? Your appointment is in 2 hours. Vincent's client meetings usually last 3 to 4 hours. Jennifer's face darkened. That should give us time to start searching. What about the security cameras? There are blind spots, places where even Vincent's paranoia couldn't reach. The laundry room, parts of the basement, some storage areas. We'll have to be careful, but it's possible. A soft knock interrupted us. Ashley appeared in the doorway, her face grim. Vincent wants to see you in his office, she told me. Final briefing before your appointment. Jennifer squeezed my hand. Remember what I said. Feel powerful. Vincent's office was on the mansion's main floor, behind heavy oak doors that probably cost more than most people's cars. The room was designed to intimidate. Massive desk, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, artwork that belonged in museums. Vincent looked up from his computer as I entered. His eyes traveled over me appraisingly, like I was merchandise he was preparing to sell. Perfect, he said with satisfaction. Mr. Davidson will be very pleased. He gestured for me to sit in one of the leather chairs facing his desk. I noticed the chair was positioned to make the occupant feel small, powerless. Another psychological trick. Let's review the rules one more time, Vincent said, pulling up a file on his computer. Rule 1. The client is always satisfied. Whatever he requests, you comply. No exceptions. My skin crawled, but I nodded. Rule 2. Absolute confidentiality. Nothing that happens in that room is ever discussed with anyone. Not the other women, not outsiders, not even me, unless I specifically ask. Another nod. Inside, I was screaming. Rule 3. Safety protocols. There's a panic button in every client room. If you're in genuine danger, and I emphasize genuine, press it. Security will respond immediately. But false alarms have consequences. What kind of consequences? I didn't want to know. Mr. Davidson has been a client for over a year, Vincent continued. He's generally well behaved, though he has some particular preferences. Nothing you can't handle if you keep your wits about you. Particular preferences. The phrase sent ice through my veins. Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. Excellent. He's arrived early. That means he's especially eager to meet you. He stood up, straightening his expensive suit. Remember, Zara, this is a business. Nothing more, nothing less. Treat it professionally and everyone benefits. Try to be heroic or difficult and... He didn't finish the threat. He didn't need to. We left the office together, walking through the mansion's main hallway toward what I assumed were the client rooms. Vincent kept up a stream of casual conversation, as if we were discussing the weather instead of my impending violation. Mr. Davidson made his fortune in tech, he said. Brilliant man, though somewhat eccentric. He has a fascination with alien cultures, which is why he specifically requested you. A fascination with alien cultures. I wondered if he knew exactly how alien I really was. We stopped outside a door marked with a discrete number, 7. My room number. Was that a coincidence? He's waiting inside, Vincent said, checking his watch. Take your time getting acquainted. There's no rush. He walked away, leaving me standing alone outside the door. Behind it waited a man who saw me as a commodity, a thing to be used for his entertainment. But he had no idea what he was really dealing with. I took a deep breath, centering myself the way my grandmother had taught me back on Kepler Prime. I thought about my real abilities, the ones I'd kept hidden since arriving on Earth. The enhanced strength, the heightened senses, the natural empathy that let me read emotions and intentions. Vincent thought he was sending a helpless victim into that room. Instead, he was sending a predator disguised as prey. I knocked softly and entered. Mr. Davidson was exactly what I'd expected. Mid-50s, soft around the middle, with the kind of confidence that came from never having to face consequences for his actions. He was sitting in an armchair, wearing an expensive suit and an anticipatory smile. "Zara," he said, rising to greet me. "You're even more beautiful than Vincent described." Beautiful. Not the word I would have chosen for myself, but I smiled and played the role. "Thank you, Mr. Davidson." "It's a pleasure to meet you." He gestured toward a sofa. "Please call me Richard." "And the pleasure is entirely mine. I've been looking forward to this meeting for weeks." Weeks. He'd been planning this encounter, fantasizing about it, probably counting the days until he could add me to his collection of experiences. "Vincent tells me you're from Kepler Prime," he continued, pouring himself a drink from a crystal decanter. "Fascinating world. I've read everything I can find about your species." My species. Like I was an exotic animal in a zoo. "What would you like to know?" I asked, settling onto the sofa and trying to look relaxed. "Everything," Richard said, his eyes gleaming with an enthusiasm that made my skin crawl. "Your culture, your customs, your biology." Biology. There was the real interest. For the next hour, I answered his questions, weaving truth with careful lies. I told him about Kepler Prime's twin suns and purple skies, about our music and art, about our philosophy of harmony with nature. I kept the conversation away from anything too personal or dangerous. But as time passed, Richard grew bolder. His questions became more invasive, more focused on physical differences between humans and my people. His eyes lingered on my skin, my hands, my face, with an intensity that made me feel like I was being dissected. "I have to confess," he said during a lull in conversation, "I've never been with an alien woman before. This is quite a milestone for me. Been with." The euphemism was crystal clear. "I'm flattered to be your first," I replied, though the words tasted like poison. Richard moved from his chair to the sofa, sitting uncomfortably close. "Vincent assured me you were accommodating. I hope that's true." His hand reached for my arm. I let him touch me, though every instinct screamed to break his fingers. "Of course," I said softly. "I'm here to make sure you enjoy yourself." But as his hands grew bolder and his breathing quickened, I made my own plans. Richard Davidson thought he was about to dominate an alien woman, to add her to his collection of conquests. Instead, he was about to become my first source of information about Vincent's operation. By the time I was finished with him, he would tell me everything he knew about Vincent's clients, his methods, his weaknesses. And then I would make him pay for every woman he'd violated in this house of nightmares. The game was about to begin, and Richard had no idea he was the prey. Richard's hands were clumsy, eager, disgusting, but I endured his touch while my mind worked on a different level. My alien heritage gave me abilities he couldn't imagine. Enhanced senses that let me read his emotional state, detect lies, and most importantly, influence his thoughts in subtle ways. Humans were surprisingly susceptible to psychic suggestion when they were distracted by base desires. "Tell me about Vincent," I whispered, using my empathic abilities to make the request feel like pillow talk rather than interrogation. "How long have you known him?" Richard's breathing was heavy, his judgment clouded by lust. Perfect conditions for what I needed to do. "2 years," he said, his hands still roaming. "Best investment I ever made. He finds the most incredible women, ones you can't get anywhere else." "Investment," I prompted gently, letting my psychic influence make him more talkative. 20,000 deposit, Richard mumbled. Then 5,000 per session, worth every penny for this level of quality. $20,000. The number burned in my mind. Vincent was charging his clients enormous sums to assault desperate women. And from what Jennifer had said, there were multiple clients. You must know other men who use Vincent's services, I suggested, my alien abilities making the words feel like his own curiosity. Oh, yes, Richard said eagerly. There's a whole network of us. Successful men who appreciate the finer things. Vincent's very selective about his clientele. A network. This was even bigger than I'd imagined. Anyone I might have met? I asked, maintaining the illusion of casual conversation while my psychic influence dug deeper into his thoughts. Names spilled from his lips like water from a broken dam. Politicians, business leaders, men whose faces appeared on magazine covers and news programs. Each name was another nail in Vincent's coffin, more evidence of the scope of his operation. But as Richard grew more aggressive, more demanding, I realized our time was running out. Soon he would expect things from me that I couldn't give, wouldn't give. I needed to end this encounter on my terms. Richard, I said softly, using my abilities to push feelings of drowsiness and confusion into his mind. You're looking tired. His movements slowed. Yes, I suppose I am. Strange. I usually have more energy. Why don't you rest for a moment? I suggested, intensifying the psychic pressure. Just close your eyes. Richard's eyes fluttered shut. Within moments, he was unconscious, victim of an alien ability he never knew existed. He would wake up in an hour with fragmented memories and the belief that he'd had exactly the experience he'd paid for. But I had work to do. I quickly searched his pockets, finding his phone and wallet. The phone was password protected, but his wallet contained business cards, credit cards, and most importantly, a small notebook filled with appointments and contact information. I photographed everything with my own device, careful not to disturb anything that might indicate I'd been searching. Then I replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. Richard slept peacefully, completely unaware that his victim had just become his hunter. I slipped out of the room and found Jennifer waiting in the hallway, her face tight with worry. "How did it go?" she whispered. "Better than expected," I replied. "I have information, names, numbers, details about Vincent's operation, but more importantly, I learned something about my own capabilities." Jennifer looked confused, but I didn't have time to explain about my alien abilities. Not yet. "Did you find anything about Maria's evidence?" I asked. Jennifer shook her head. "We searched the laundry room and 2 storage areas. Nothing. But Ashley thinks she might know where else to look." We found Ashley in the common area, pretending to watch television while actually keeping watch for Vincent's return. "There's a room on the 4th floor," she said quietly when we approached. "Vincent calls it storage, but I've seen him go there when he thinks no one is watching. Always alone, always nervous." "Can we get up there?" I asked. "There's a service elevator," Jennifer said. "But the cameras—" "I can handle the cameras," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure how. My abilities were growing stronger under stress, revealing capabilities I'd never fully explored. Ashley looked at me strangely. "How?" "Trust me," I said, "but we need to move fast. Richard will wake up soon, and Vincent will want a full report." We made our way to the service elevator, a cramped metal box hidden behind a maintenance door. As we rose to the fourth floor, I focused my psychic abilities on the security system, sending waves of confusion and static that would hopefully blur the camera feeds. The fourth floor was different from the rest of the mansion. Dusty, neglected, filled with the kind of shadows that hid secrets. We moved carefully down the hallway, testing doors, searching for whatever Vincent was hiding. The third door we tried was locked, but Jennifer produced a set of pics she'd stolen from maintenance. 6 months in this place teaches you useful skills, she muttered as she worked. The lock clicked open, revealing a room that made us all gasp. It wasn't storage, it was a shrine to Vincent's crimes. The walls were covered with photographs, dozens of women, all looking desperate, all wearing the same expression of fear and false hope I'd seen in my own mirror. Below each photo was a card with details, name, age, origin world for the aliens, and a date. My God, Jennifer whispered, there are so many of them. But it was the second wall that made my blood turn to ice. More photos, but these were different. These women looked vacant, drugged, or worse, and stamped across each photo was a single word: sold. He's trafficking them, Ashley said, her voice hollow with horror. Not just using them here. He's selling them to buyers. I moved deeper into the room, my alien senses picking up traces of fear and desperation that lingered like psychic residue. At the far end was a desk covered with files and a computer that was still running. This is it, I breathed. This is what Maria found. Jennifer rushed to the computer while Ashley and I searched the files. What we discovered was a business operation that spanned continents. Vincent had clients in dozens of countries, all paying enormous sums for women who fit specific criteria. Alien women were the most expensive category. Look at this, Jennifer said from the computer. He's got a shipping schedule. 3 women are supposed to be transferred next week. She showed us the screen. 3 names, 3 photos. Carmen, Priya, and someone listed only as new green subject. Me. We have to stop this, I said, my voice shaking with rage. How? Ashley asked. We're tracked, monitored, trapped. Even if we could escape, who would believe us? That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I'm going to show you something, I said quietly. Something I've kept hidden since I arrived on Earth. But I need you to promise me you'll keep this secret. They both nodded, sensing the gravity of the moment. I unwrapped my headscarf, revealing not just my green skin, but the faint patterns that marked me as something more than an ordinary refugee from Kepler Prime. Then I focused my abilities, letting them see what I really was. The air around me shimmered with psychic energy. The computer screen flickered as I influenced it from across the room. Small objects on the desk began to move without being touched. You're not just an alien, Jennifer whispered in amazement. You're something else entirely. I'm what your people would call psychic, I explained. My grandmother was part of Kepler Prime's warrior caste. We have abilities your scientists don't understand. Ashley stared at me with new respect and hope. Can you get us out of here? Better than that, I said, my voice hardening with resolve. I can destroy Vincent's entire operation, but I'll need your help. What do you need us to do? I looked around the room at the evidence of Vincent's crimes, at the photos of women who trusted the wrong person and paid the ultimate price. We're going to burn this place down, I said, metaphorically speaking. By tomorrow night, Vincent Cross will be finished, his clients will be exposed, and every woman he's harmed will have justice. How? Jennifer asked. I smiled, and for the first time since entering this nightmare mansion, it was a genuine expression of joy. We're going to use Vincent's own greed against him, I said, and we're going to make sure the whole world knows what kind of monster he really is. We spent the next hour in that horrible room, photographing everything, downloading files, building a case that would destroy Vincent's empire. My psychic abilities kept the security cameras malfunctioning, buying us precious time. Jennifer worked on the computer while Ashley and I documented the physical evidence. Every photo, every file, every piece of correspondence that revealed the scope of Vincent's trafficking network. This is incredible, Jennifer said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. He's got client databases, financial records, shipping manifests, everything we need to bring him down. What about the authorities? Ashley asked. Police, FBI, immigration services? Vincent's got connections everywhere, I said, studying a file filled with payment records to various officials. Look at this. He's been paying bribes to police captains, immigration judges, even federal prosecutors. The corruption went deep, tendrils of Vincent's influence reaching into every level of law enforcement and government. A simple call to the police wouldn't be enough. We need media attention, Jennifer said, something so big and public that Vincent can't cover it up or make it disappear. That's when the idea hit me. Richard Davidson, I said, he's scheduled for a big tech conference next week. Hundreds of reporters, live streaming, international coverage. What about him? Ashley asked. He told me there's a whole network of Vincent's clients. Powerful men who think they're untouchable. I smiled grimly. What if that network suddenly became very touchable? I explained my plan. It was risky, dangerous, and required perfect timing. But if it worked, Vincent's entire operation would collapse in the most public way possible. That's insane, Ashley said when I finished, but it might actually work. Jennifer was already back at the computer, pulling up information about the conference. Davidson's giving the keynote speech on Friday. That gives us 4 days to set everything up. What about the implants? Ashley asked. Even if we somehow pull this off, we're still tracked. Leave that to me, I said. There are ways to disable tracking devices if you know what you're doing. Actually, I had no idea if my psychic abilities could affect the implants. But I was learning that desperation and determination could push my powers to new levels. We finished documenting everything and prepared to leave the room. But as we reached the door, Jennifer grabbed my arm. There's something else, she said quietly. Something I didn't tell you before. What? Maria didn't just find evidence. She found out what really happens to the women who disappear. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? Jennifer's voice was barely a whisper. They don't just sell them to other traffickers. Some of the clients, they pay extra for women they never have to return. The room spun around me. Women weren't just being sold into slavery. They were being sold for elimination. How many? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. At least 20, based on what Maria found. Women who were reported as transferred, but never appeared anywhere else. 20 women, 20 lives snuffed out to satisfy the twisted desires of rich monsters. Vincent has to pay, Ashley said, her voice filled with cold fury. Not just prison. He has to pay for what he's done to all of them. He will, I promised. But first, we make sure no one else suffers the same fate. We returned to the lower floors, our minds buzzing with plans and possibilities. The evidence we'd gathered was explosive, but getting it to the right people without Vincent discovering our activities would require careful coordination. That evening, we sat in the common area, pretending to watch television while actually planning revolution. Carmen and Priya had been brought into our conspiracy, their faces grim with determination when they learned the truth about their situation. The shipping schedule shows all three of us being transferred next Tuesday, Carmen said quietly. That's our deadline. What about the other women? Priya asked. The ones who will come after us. There won't be any others, I said with absolute certainty. By next Tuesday, Vincent Cross will be finished. Vincent appeared in the doorway, his usual predatory smile in place. How was your first client meeting, Zara? I trust Mr. Davidson was satisfied? Completely, I said, matching his false cheerfulness. He was very complimentary about your selection process. Vincent's smile widened. Excellent. I've already scheduled your next appointment for Thursday, a very important client who specifically requested someone with your unique qualities. Thursday, 2 days from now. I wondered if this new client was another name for my growing list of targets. I look forward to it, I lied smoothly. Vincent studied me for a moment, and I worried that my psychic influence might have left some trace he could detect. But his expression remained satisfied. I'm glad you're adapting so well to your new role, he said. Some women take much longer to accept their circumstances. Circumstances, as if being trafficked and violated was just another life situation to adapt to. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, I said, putting as much sincerity as I could muster into the words. Good. Well, ladies, enjoy your evening. Tomorrow is another busy day. He left us alone, and I felt the collective exhale of relief from the other women. He has no idea, Jennifer whispered. That's what makes him vulnerable, I replied. He's so confident in his control that he can't imagine resistance. We spent the rest of the evening refining our plan. By the time we retired to our rooms, every detail had been worked out. We knew our roles, our timing, our backup strategies. But as I lay in that narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were missing something important. Vincent had been running this operation for years, avoiding detection, staying one step ahead of law enforcement. He was either incredibly lucky or incredibly smart. Tomorrow, I would find out which one. Thursday morning brought my second client appointment, and with it, another opportunity to gather intelligence. Vincent had mentioned this client was very important, which meant he likely knew more about the operation's inner workings. His name was Senator Marcus Webb, a man whose face I recognized from political news programs. He represented family values and law and order policies, making his presence in Vincent's mansion particularly revolting. As I prepared for the meeting, Jennifer slipped me a small device she'd fashioned from electronic components stolen from maintenance. Audio recorder, she whispered. If you can get him talking about Vincent's operation, we'll have a senator on tape discussing human trafficking. The device was tiny, easily concealed. But getting a paranoid politician to incriminate himself would require all of my psychic abilities. Senator Webb was waiting in the same room where I'd encountered Richard Davidson. But where Davidson had been crude and obvious, Webb was polished and calculating. He studied me with the cold assessment of a man accustomed to evaluating assets. Vincent's descriptions don't do you justice, he said, his politician smile never wavering. You're quite remarkable. Thank you, Senator. It's an honor to meet you, He raised an eyebrow. You recognize me? Your work in the Senate is very impressive, I replied, using my abilities to project the kind of admiration he craved. Webb preened under the false praise. It's gratifying to meet someone who appreciates public service. Most people don't understand the sacrifices required for effective leadership. Sacrifices, like the women he was helping to exploit. I imagine your position requires tremendous discretion, I said, gently probing with psychic influence. Absolutely, Webb agreed, settling into a chair with obvious comfort. Discretion is everything in politics. Vincent understands that better than most business partners. Business partners. The phrase confirmed what I'd suspected. Vincent's operation extended into the highest levels of government. You've worked with Vincent for a long time? I asked, making the question sound like casual curiosity. 3 years, Webb said proudly. I was instrumental in establishing some of his international connections. My position on the Foreign Relations Committee opened doors that might otherwise have remained closed. The audio recorder captured every word as Webb bragged about using his senatorial authority to facilitate human trafficking. My psychic influence kept him relaxed and talkative, eager to impress what he saw as an exotic conquest. Vincent mentioned you have a network of associates, I prompted. Oh, yes, Webb said eagerly. Judges, prosecutors, police commissioners, men who understand that certain arrangements require protection from overzealous investigators. He continued talking, naming names, describing payoffs, detailing exactly how Vincent's corruption network operated. Each revelation was another nail in their collective coffin. But as the conversation continued, Webb's interests turned more personal. His hands became more aggressive, his demands more explicit. I endured his touch while my recorder captured his incriminating statements. But inside, I was counting the seconds until I could escape. Vincent assures me that his girls are completely cooperative, Webb said, his breathing growing heavier. No complications, no problems afterward. No problems afterward, because the women disappeared before they could cause problems. I used my psychic abilities to plant suggestions of fatigue and confusion, the same technique that had worked on Davidson. But Webb was more resistant, his politician's paranoia creating natural barriers to mental influence. Feeling tired, Senator? I suggested, pushing harder with my abilities. A little, he admitted, but his eyes remained focused, suspicious. Though that's strange. I'm usually much more energetic during these appointments. Danger. I could sense his growing wariness, his politician's instincts warning him that something wasn't right. Perhaps we should take a break, I suggested, backing toward the door. I don't think so, Webb said, rising from his chair. His demeanor had shifted from lustful to threatening. Vincent warned me that some women try to be clever, that they think they can manipulate the situation. My heart hammered as Webb moved between me and the exit. Had Vincent suspected our activities? Was this a test? I don't understand, I said, trying to project innocence while preparing to fight. I think you understand perfectly, Webb replied. The question is, what exactly are you planning? That's when I realized we'd made a critical error. We'd been so focused on gathering evidence that we hadn't considered Vincent might be gathering evidence of his own. Webb pulled out his phone and speed dialed a number. Vincent? Yes, it's exactly what you suspected. She's been trying to extract information. Through the phone, I heard Vincent's voice. Excellent. Proceed as discussed. The room suddenly felt like a trap closing around me. But Webb had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated exactly what kind of creature he was dealing with. I stopped pretending to be helpless. My psychic abilities erupted outward with the force of genuine terror and rage. Webb staggered backward as waves of mental energy slammed into his consciousness. His phone flew from his hand and shattered against the wall. What what are you? He gasped, clutching his head. Your worst nightmare, I replied, my voice carrying harmonics that didn't exist in human speech. I pushed deeper into his mind, past his defenses, into the core of his consciousness. What I found there made me sick. Memories of women he'd hurt, children he'd exploited, decades of abuse hidden behind a facade of respectability. Please, he begged, collapsing to his knees. Don't. I can't. But I wasn't interested in his pleas. I planted suggestions deep in his subconscious, commands that would activate when he least expected them. Senator Marcus Webb would have a very public breakdown at exactly the moment it would do the most damage to Vincent's operation. The door burst open, and Vincent entered with two security guards. But instead of finding Webb in control and me subdued, they discovered a senator cowering on the floor and an alien woman whose true nature was no longer hidden. Hello, Vincent, I said, my psychic energy crackling visibly in the air around me. I think it's time we had an honest conversation. Vincent's face went pale as he realized he'd captured something far more dangerous than a desperate refugee. Sedate her, he ordered the guards, but as they raised their weapons, I smiled. Too late, I said. The revolution has already begun. The lights went out, plunging the room into darkness. In the confusion that followed, I heard Jennifer's voice over the mansion's intercom system. Attention all staff and clients. This facility is now under new management. Phase 1 of our plan was complete. In the darkness, my alien senses gave me every advantage. I could see the heat signatures of Vincent's guards, hear their elevated heartbeats, smell their fierce sweat. They were operating blind while I moved with perfect precision. The first guard went down before he could even locate me in the blackness. A psychic pulse to his nervous system, and he collapsed unconscious. The second guard fired his tranquilizer gun wildly, but I was already behind him, my enhanced strength making it simple to disarm and disable him. Vincent cowered in the corner while Senator Webb whimpered on the floor, his mind still reeling from my psychic assault. Emergency lighting will restore in 60 seconds, I announced calmly. I suggest you use that time to consider your options. What do you want? Vincent's voice cracked with terror. Justice, I replied. But first, I want you to call off your security team. Tell them everything is under control. I won't. A focused burst of psychic energy cut off his protest. Vincent gasped as I gave him a small taste of the mental agony I could inflict. You will, I said quietly, or I'll let Senator Webb here tell you about what I can do to a human mind. Vincent fumbled for his radio with shaking hands. All units, stand down. False alarm in the client area. Return to normal patrol patterns. Good, I said as the emergency lighting flickered on. Now we're going to take a little walk. I marched Vincent and Webb out of the client room and toward the elevator. Through the mansion's windows, I could see external security guards still patrolling, unaware that their world was about to collapse. Jennifer met us at the elevator, her face flushed with excitement. Phase 2 is ready, she reported. All the women are secure, and we've got complete control of the mansion's internal systems. Excellent. What about external communications? Cut off. No cell service, no landlines, no internet. Vincent's little empire is now completely isolated. Vincent's face had gone from pale to gray. You can't get away with this. I have connections, protection. Had, I corrected. Past tense, because in about 30 minutes, those connections are going to be very busy dealing with their own problems. We rode the elevator to the fourth floor, back to Vincent's secret room. But now, instead of hiding our activities, we were broadcasting them. Ashley was at the computer, uploading files to a dozen different news organizations simultaneously. Carmen and Priya had set up cameras to document everything we'd found. How long until the uploads are complete? I asked. 15 more minutes, Ashley replied. Then every major news network in the country will have copies of Vincent's client lists, financial records, and trafficking schedules. Vincent stared at his dismantled empire in horror. You don't understand what you're doing. These men, they have power you can't imagine. They'll destroy you. They'll try, I agreed, but they'll have to find us first. And they'll be too busy protecting themselves from prosecution to worry about revenge. Senator Webb had been silent since our encounter in the client room, but now he spoke up, his voice hollow. Vincent, you said she was just a refugee. You didn't tell me she was a warrior, I finished, from a species that doesn't tolerate predators. Through the window, I could see news helicopters approaching in the distance. Our media contacts had moved quickly once they'd seen the evidence. Time to go, I announced. But first, a few final arrangements. I turned to Vincent, focusing my psychic abilities on his consciousness. You're going to walk downstairs, disable the mansion's security system, and unlock all the doors. Then you're going to wait in your office until the authorities arrive. I won't. The psychic compulsion hit him like a physical blow. His eyes went blank, his will subsumed by my mental commands. Yes, he said in a monotone voice. I will disable security and wait for arrest. Senator Webb watched in terror as Vincent walked mechanically toward the elevator. What did you do to him? I gave him a conscience, I replied, something he's been missing for years. The other women had gathered their belongings and destroyed any evidence of our plan. We'd prepared for this moment, knowing that our escape would need to be swift and clean. The service tunnels are clear, Jennifer reported, checking her stolen security tablet. We can reach the perimeter fence without being detected. But I had one final task to complete. I approached Senator Webb, who cringed away from me. Please, he begged, I'll do anything. I'll confess, I'll testify against Vincent. You will, I agreed, but not because I'm forcing you. Because your own guilt will make it impossible to stay silent. I planted the psychic suggestions deep in his subconscious. Over the next few weeks, Senator Webb would find himself compulsively confessing his crimes to reporters, colleagues, anyone who would listen. He would be unable to stop himself from revealing every detail of the corruption network. What have you done to me? He whispered. I've set you free, I said, free from the burden of keeping secrets. The news helicopters were directly overhead now, their cameras undoubtedly capturing the mansion's exterior. Soon, this place would be swarming with investigators, reporters, and federal agents. We made our way to the service tunnels, a network of maintenance passages that connected to the mansion's utility systems. Vincent's paranoia had worked against him. He'd built so many hidden routes for his own security that escape was surprisingly easy. As we moved through the tunnels, I could hear sirens in the distance. The authorities were responding faster than we'd expected. There, Jennifer said, pointing to a ladder that led to a storm drain exit beyond the mansion's perimeter fence. That's our way out. One by one, we climbed to freedom. When I emerged from the storm drain, I took my first breath of truly free air since entering Vincent's mansion. But we weren't safe yet. The tracking implants, Ashley reminded me, they're still active. I had prepared for this moment. Using my psychic abilities, I reached into Vincent's panicked mind and planted a crucial suggestion. Vincent's voice crackled over his radio to the security team. Emergency Protocol 7. Police are approaching. Deactivate all tracking systems immediately. They could be monitoring our signals. We heard the confusion in the guards' voices, but Vincent's panic was convincing. Within minutes, all the tracking implants went silent. Vincent just disabled his own security system, I said with satisfaction. He thinks he's protecting himself from police surveillance, but he's actually setting us free. In the distance, Vincent's mansion blazed with emergency lights as law enforcement surrounded the property. News helicopters circled like mechanical vultures, broadcasting the downfall of a trafficking empire to the world. He'll realize what happened soon, Jennifer said. Too late, I replied. By then, we'll be ghosts. What happens now? Carmen asked. I looked at my fellow survivors, women who had endured hell and emerged stronger. Now we disappear. We start new lives far from here, and we make sure the world remembers what happened in that house. What about you? Jennifer asked. Where will you go? I thought about my options. I could disappear into an alien community somewhere, hide my true nature again, try to blend in. Or I could do something different. I'm going to become what Vincent feared most, I said, a woman who fights back. As we walked away from the mansion, leaving behind our past as victims, I made a silent promise. There were other Vincent Crosses out there, other predators who thought they could prey on the desperate and defenseless. They were about to learn they were wrong. The hunt was just beginning. Epilogue, 6 months later. The trial of Vincent Cross became the most watched legal proceeding of the decade. Senator Webb's compulsive confessions had triggered a cascade of investigations that brought down corruption networks in 12 countries. I watched the verdict from a small cafe in Portland, my appearance altered, but my purpose unchanged. Vincent received multiple life sentences without parole. His mansion had been converted into a shelter for trafficking survivors. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. New case in Chicago. Businessman named Morrison. Interested? I smiled and typed back, "Send me everything." In the months since our escape, we'd become something unprecedented. A network of survivors who hunted predators. Using my abilities and their intelligence, we'd already brought down 3 more trafficking operations. The work was dangerous, but necessary. For every Vincent Cross we stopped, dozens of women lived free. I finished my coffee and stood to leave. Somewhere in Chicago, a businessman named Morrison was about to learn that not all prey stayed silent. The revolution continued.